Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Sohail Zindani, and we are back with another episode of In Conversation with Sohail Zindani. And I've been constantly telling you, this is not about Sohail Zindani. This is about my friends, people who I respect, adore, who are my mentors, somebody who we all can learn immensely from. Today we're going to talk about leadership crisis, and today my guest is someone जिसके बारे में मैं आपको ये बताता हूँ कि मैं इनको 2018 से पहले जानता भी नहीं था. इनके वालिद को मैं जानता था, इनको कतई नहीं जानता था. इनसे मुलाकात हुई मेरी यूएस में पहली दफा एक कॉन्फ्रेंस के अंदर, जहां हमने बस एक दूसरे को दूर से हेलो किया. ना इन्होंने मुझे लिफ्ट कराई, ना मैंने इनको लिफ्ट कराई. रेसिप्रोकेटिंग. And then we came back to Karachi, and I was honored to have him in the first edition of Insights Business Forum. Since then, I think the relationship of trust and respect that we have enjoyed has been amazing. He is somebody who I genuinely call a global consultant, and to add on to that, somebody who can claim that his family has been consultant. So we have Azfar Mir with us. Hello, Azfar.
Hi, Sohail. Thank you for having me. And for that generous introduction, and a privilege to be here. I'm humbled that you would, deem me worthy of an opinion, and really humbled to be here. Thank you.
There's always so much to learn from you. So we'll quickly get into action. It's 12:40, and the idea is that we have to conclude it in 30 minutes time so that listeners can also get the maximum value out of it. My first question coming your way. Is there a leadership crisis? या मैं ऐसे ही बस कहानियां बना रहा हूँ?
Yeah, it's, as usual, you ask weighty questions. वजन होता है आपके सवाल में. इसमें कुछ ज़्यादा है, and I hope it's not because of just me and my weight, but it's it takes me, leadership is interesting, and these times are very interesting. It takes me back a few years. I was in China and in this World Management Forum where we were asked to come into groups and look at data and ask questions and ask for more data, and then answer some specific questions. And so one of those questions, for example, the Chinese government was asking was, why is our service industry behind India's service industry? And so it was very interesting. What I found was, when we came onto the stage and when we were looking at the people there, thousands of people there, the front row was filled with sort of ministers from the government, and they were taking notes, and they were sort of nudging each other with elbows and saying this is important or that is important. And I thought, what incredible level of humility, which at that time took me further back to when I learned what the meaning of minister in our tradition is. So in Arabic, minister is a vizier, and the meaning of the word vizier is the one who carries burdens. And right now that is being tested. Our ability to carry a burden is being tested. So I would say that yes, it's definitely these are testing times. The measure of leadership itself is being tested. How much burden you can carry of others is being tested. And so yes, I would certainly agree that these are for sure testing times and a leadership crisis. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. First of all, let me just say that this wazir idea, the idea of carrying the burden, and all the global lingos around servant leadership, which are so much in our times. Why did I thought of leadership crisis? Because I've been just looking around, things. मुझे बड़ा दुख हुआ कि Netflix को वीडियो इंडस्ट्री ने इन्वेंट ही नहीं किया. आईफोन या आईट्यून्स म्यूजिक इंडस्ट्री ने इन्वेंट नहीं किया. एयरबीएनबी के बारे में मैरियट को कभी ख्याल ही नहीं आया. मैं ये नहीं मान सकता कि उसमें जो लोग काम करते हैं उनको भी कभी ख्याल नहीं आया. बट आई नॉर्मली फाइंड एट टाइम्स लीडर्स आर सो कॉन्स्टिपेटेड विद व्हाट दे नो दैट their ability to ask questions, seek feedback, gain insights, I think वो इतना पीछे चली जाती है just by being protective of what they know so that the legacy and whatever continues. But I think this thought that you added to the equation of Wazir taking the burden, I think this can completely lead to a completely new perspective to how a leader should be, how the leader is carrying the burden of his own legacy or the burden of reinventing the future for that matter.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, when you have such testing times, you have opportunity. You're very right. I've read it documented. I've read that it is a documented case of an employee going to Blockbuster, which I've seen when I used to live in the US. I've seen Blockbusters shut down around neighborhoods. And you're very right. A Blockbuster, not only did a Blockbuster not invent a Netflix, the owner of Netflix went to, with the valuation of 50 million to the owner of Blockbuster, and that was refused. And the last time I checked, I think Blockbuster never went beyond $1.5 billion, maybe $2 billion. And Netflix was in the hundreds of billions in terms of valuation. But there was a time that he went to Blockbuster offering this. There is another case of an employee, as you're very rightly saying. It's not that people within that industry or that organization don't think of it. It's the leadership that are, and I love that, constipated with their current focus in their business, that they sometimes don't have that, or the people in that position of leadership don't have that foresight. And so there's also a case of an employee going to Blockbuster and saying, don't charge penalties. And one of the leaders saying, you don't understand our business, that 70% of our fees is penalties. And I'm one of them who's paid those penalties. So I know the pain of it. There was a time when it said, be kind and rewind. And so if you didn't rewind that tape, that VHS tape, I even forget what it was called, you had to pay a penalty. If you were a day late, you had to pay a penalty. I remember the early days of Netflix when I used to ask for the CD or the DVD to come in mail, and there was no penalty in returning it in the same mail in the return envelope. So they just brought in a lot of convenience. If you look at industry after industry, when we talk about leadership and innovation, because you touched upon that, there's the story of the ice harvesters. And the ice harvesters are people who have to go onto a mountain and find a lake in the northern areas, which has frozen ice on top, and they have to cut the ice, and they have to put the ice on horseback carriages and bring the ice back and, make it consumable for individuals, and then distribute it and sell it. And if you were an ice harvester, all you had to do to be better at ice harvesting was sharpen that saw, was to have bigger horse carriages, maybe more horses, maybe, a way to keep that ice cold and frozen for longer periods of time. But then came ice factories. And ice factories were very different, as we know. You could now manufacture ice. If you were an ice factory, you needed bigger ice factories, bigger refrigeration plants, better and further reaching cold chains, and then came refrigeration at home. None of the irony is that none of the ice harvesters became ice factories, and none of the ice factories became refrigeration companies, and that really is a challenge. And I think you've struck a chord with me, because innovation is a big part of leadership. But you're very right, and I think that constipation is a great way, as usual, a great way to put it.
So Asfar, I think the idea of these conversations is the people find few pragmatic solutions to to things. How can one improve? Okay, I as a leader would like to sign up to the idea that, okay, I'm stuck with what I know. I'm stuck with what has been comfortable for me. If I want to move out of this, what should I be doing?
Yeah, I think, again, great point. There are a couple of ways to think about it. The one is what we do in conventional times, but like you said, this is really something that is quite unprecedented for the people who are living in today's time, not really having experienced these times before. At the moment, the change or the focus that's required is a lot more on empathy and compassion and values. And I say that from my heart. And I think at any given time, the capacity of the heart to do the right thing or the wrong things is tremendous. That range is tremendous for all of us. I'm guilty of that. And, many leaders are guilty of that. And so that focus, this choice of what defines us, that very question, and being introspective and holding ourselves accountable to that question is really, the virus doesn't define us, our values do. And that's really important at this time of, as you said, crisis. This time shall pass, inshallah. And so, but what we do right now will have lasting consequences. Being mindful of that, being really conscious of that, and you said the word legacy, that's what will define us, what we will do. And I picked up this question, and I started thinking about it's hard to think about this, but only maybe 2 weeks ago and not longer, I was at a family wedding. I'd just come into the city, and it was a family wedding. We just started to hear that, okay, maybe there will be some cases in Karachi. Maybe we need to start to think about social distancing. Maybe we need to, but the physical distancing had not really started yet. The wedding was in my in-laws. I didn't really have a choice, so I had to be there. They had the sense to convert the 4 functions that were remaining into one function. And I had a moment where I had my wife and her cousins that were standing right in front of me, and the realization that we will not have another function had just sunk in. And so this moment where the 2 of them looked at each other, just eye contact with concern, and they said, "What will we do?" And so they stopped. There was this pause, and I'm thinking, wow, there's so much concern and compassion and empathy for humanity right in front of me. And that pause was long enough for me to assume what was coming next. And I was wrong, because as my son would say, they jinxed each other. They said at the same time, what about the clothes we what are the clothes we made? And I think the first part is really relevant. What will we do? The second part, of course, as we think about it more and more, needs to change. And what will we do about the time that our children now have on their hands because they're not going to school? How do we structure that time? What will we do about the children that don't have access to laptops or online learning or cannot afford it? What would we do about children in schools that don't really have a concept of remote education? And we live in a country where that is true for more people. And this, what will we do about our clothes, is what I call a problem of privilege, right? It's a problem that's a product of privilege, and so a problem of privilege. And so we've got to think beyond. And the first thing I think we need to do is to turn towards our own capacities of doing the right thing. Our own capacities of the biggest weapons in the toughest fights, and I often say this, are compassion and kindness and our ability to reach in deep down inside, and our ability to exercise and do the right thing. That's what's really required. I think that's number one. And then when we're out of these, and we have to prepare for these times, I think we've got to keep the hope alive. When I went for Hajj, which is a tremendous journey in itself, there was a time when they take you for this tour, and one of one of the teachers there, he narrated a story, and he said, this is the place where the Battle of Badr took place, and this is the place where the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, he asked 3 du'as, 3 prayers. And so the first, and he was with Jibreel, and the first prayer was that no external enemy completely annihilates my ummah. And that's what he asked, my people. So no external, so the prayer is that no external enemy completely destroys or annihilates my ummah. And so Jibreel said, that's been granted. So that has been accepted. And so the second one was that no calamity, such as what we're facing right now, and others like it, none of that annihilates my mind. So Jibril said that is also granted. And the third one was that no fight amongst within my ummah, like sects forming and all sorts of those things. That doesn't destroy or deter my ummah. And Jibril said that that prayer has not been granted. So that has not been accepted. And it is, and I think about when God says that, I don't change the condition of people unless they are willing to do something about it and they change their own condition. And if we bring this back to leadership circles, there's Jim Collins said in level 5 leadership that he says that one of the themes of level 5 leadership was that they said that we would do what we can, what was inside our influence, do our best and leave the rest to luck. Incidentally, we were working on this values exercise for one of the organizations that wanted to extract the values from the religion that they follow. And there was a hadith that said exactly the same thing, except for one word. It said, do your best and leave the rest to God. The Stockdale paradox says that the people who survive these sort of calamities and tough times are people who have a very clear understanding of reality, and they don't have like an ostrich syndrome. But at the same time, they are hopeful for things working out in the long term. And I think that's what leaders need to do specifically. First, reach within, introspect, access our energies and want of doing the right thing, which will bring peace to us. It will also give hope to people, but also share realities with people. Share the realities as they're changing every moment. So I think some of those specifics, but unconventional times, there are, of course, models of innovation that we look at, which is, really start with the customer, really start with focusing on the customer. And that's what leads to innovation. That's what we have to, monetary capital will be lost. That's a given. Right now, monetary capital will be lost for many organizations, most organizations. And if you look at overall, monetary capital will be lost. But that doesn't mean that leadership and talent and brand and customer capital should also be lost. So building the trust with our people, building the trust with our customers, that's what the focus needs to be right now. At an individual, team, organization, community, country, or humanity level, values will be tested, faith will be tested. And it's not a matter of whether or not monetary capital will be lost. It will be lost, but it's again that question: what will we do? And holding ourselves to that question, that's going to define us. Yeah,
I think that's extremely important, and enjoying this time of social distancing and work from home, which I love it. Somebody like me who just hates working out and doing any kind of physical labor, I'm loving this time. And I've been writing stuff quite frequently now, and I'm in process of writing my own leadership book, hopefully. And the first thing that I wrote, and something that you were just talking about, is whenever we talk about leadership, we talk about a lot of competencies and capabilities and skills and things that have to be observed from the outer lens. But where I've started the conversation in that book is about a leader is supposed to be in control of so many minds around him or her. But in order to control others' mind, it's prerequisite that the leader is in control of his or her own mind. So what external fears and threats are doing to you as an individual would largely dictate how you take it up for others. And I think you're really right in saying that we will face monetary loss in various aspects, which is again something which we all signed up for when we entered into business. I mean, nobody said that there will never be, but I think this is definitely times of values and faith in check, and I think that is going to be exciting as I look at it. How to end it is the question that I wanted to bring this conversation to. What leaders need to do now? Of course, as we just discussed, that it's about values and it's about their ethics and their faith. But what are one or two action items you would suggest leaders they should do immediately? Something that they should do right after this, listening to this conversation.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I think you're striking some great chords. That part about leadership, and congratulations on starting this. Can't wait for that book to come out. And at least I'll be able to say that we were in conversation when some of the thinking was being done. So absolutely, we in our leaderistics framework, there's the EQ framework, and one of the ways that we've done a decade and a half of study and research, that one of the ways that it's different is the way it starts, which is the emotional mindset before understanding self and others. And I will say that Bill Gates was right when he said that there will be this pandemic. There's this very popular video right now of Bill Gates where he said $3 trillion will erode and we will be hit with this pandemic, and he was right apparently. And so there's also a very famous infographic where he says what species kill how many humans, and you're nodding, so you're familiar with that, and I think everyone can Google it. And it ends with the second highest is humans killing humans at about, I think, 430,000, and then about 720,000. I may be a little off with these numbers, but 720,000 was mosquitoes, and that was the highest in that infographic. But he was wrong because a number higher than that is about, and these are previous numbers, a number higher than that is 800,000 people commit suicide every year, right? So this is humans taking their own lives. And so mental well-being is a big problem. And I think when monetary capital erodes with the way that it is, that becomes a bigger problem. And so I will say a few specifics. One, check in with your people and check in with their mental well-being. I think that is infinitely important right now. And it goes back to your character as a leader. That's really, really important. And unfortunately, the prediction is that number may go up, in enduring these crises. So, and for everyone who is successful in committing suicide, there are 20 people who are unsuccessful. That takes this number to 16 million people. I was once asked to rethink the LUMS MBA program, which is one of, as we know, is one of the most prestigious MBA programs in the country. This is about, I think 12, 13 years ago. And I interacted very closely with 110 students in that batch. And out of 110, 5 were diagnosed with mental health issues. They were diagnosed, they were on medication. There were others that got close to me over every week I would interact with them over a 3-month period where they shared things like one of them was being physically abused by her husband. And so there were at least another 5 that were like that. So 10 out of 110 is a high number in a very carefully selected people. And so please check in with your people and check in with their mental well-being. And of course, don't bind yourself with the fear mongering. Create for yourself empowering perspectives and help other people create those empowering perspectives. Another very specific aspect is time. How we structure time. A lot of people are working from home, how they're structuring time. And I think everyone has this time management matrix and everyone's aware of it, that, what's important and urgent. And we all want to do what is important and urgent first and what is not important and urgent last. It's the second one where we all get trapped, which is we do the urgent and the unimportant and not the important and the unurgent. And people realize that. What people don't often realize, and this is a message I want to be spreading at this moment especially, is there are some things, especially work-related things, deadline-related things, that automatically, they're important and they automatically become urgent. So they make that transition automatically. And so they become important and urgent, therefore they get our attention, they get done. But there are some things that never make that jump on their own. This is something like, I want to do my PhD. I'll do it when my daughter's married. Or first we start with when she's in school and, when she goes to college and then she gets married, and then never gets done because it never becomes urgent. I think right now we need to look at our sort of time management matrices and ask ourselves, what are those things that, you know, writing a book, what you just said, that's something that for some people will never make that jump. Many people will unfortunately die with that, with the wisdom inside of themselves and never having shared it. And so do what you're doing, I would say, and look at that important urgent matrix. Find the things that are deeply important for you that will benefit you and others in the long term, and they might never make the jump. Right now, help those things to make that jump and work on them. And lastly, as my father always said, and I want to say that as the final point, give. He always said that you know, giving is how you make a benefit permanent for yourself. There's a very selfish reason for giving, and by taking, we make that benefit temporary. Right now is an opportunity to give, and right now is an opportunity to acquire knowledge, and knowledge, not like knowledge. You know, there's a time when in the maturity journey of Imam Ghazali, who's one of, you know, an incredible person to read about if you haven't. There's a moment in time of his maturity when he got robbed, and this is 3 years of research that he had in his books, in his bag, and he got robbed. Usually at that time, people would put their money and jewels in such a bag, but he had his books. So he was already at this level of maturity, and he got robbed along with others. Everyone others who had jewels, they stayed back, but he kept running after the people because it had books. It had his knowledge, it has his research for the last 3 years. And he kept running after the robbers. At one point in time, the robbers stopped and they looked back and they asked him, if you don't stop chasing us, we will kill you. And he said, my bag just has books. It has my knowledge. Give me my knowledge. Give me my knowledge back. It won't benefit you, but it's of infinite, value to me. And that thief, the chief thief, he looked at him and he laughed and he said, what kind of knowledge do you claim to have that I can steal from you? What kind of knowledge do you claim you possess that I can take from you when I take this bag from you? And he said, I went back and I reflected for another 3 years to acquire knowledge in the right way. And I think right now is a time specifically for all of us to deeply reflect, to give, to, you know, think what are the burdens that we can carry, and be strong, wholly strong to our values. So those might be the specifics.
That's wonderful. I think amazing. So much to learn, and I think Corona is working like that beef, putting us into that mode of thoughtfulness in terms of understanding. A few days back, I had at times I spend few minutes talking philosophy shit, and I was thinking about, I think we have lost the distinction between what is me and what is mine. And I think this is a time to reflect back into that and do that distinction. What is me? What is mine? There has been so much of aggression for protecting mine without even giving a thought to what is me. This goes back to Sean Covey की book पढ़ी थी, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he said, if you are what you have and what you have is lost who you are. So we somewhere are in that who you are zone right now, and people are trying to gather themselves. I think so much that we gained out of this conversation. As we are closing down, I would like you to respond to, this is a tradition of these conversations that I do. I'll ask you 2 questions and we'll seek your quick answers on that. So I hope you're ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a rapid fire or something.
Fire, yeah. So the first one.
Now I'm nervous.
Yeah. The first one is, Azfar, all your possession, everything that you possess is taken with a choice that is given to you to hold on to 3 things. Hold on to 3 things. What those 3 things would be?
Wow, I think the first one's easy. Faith, for sure. I think may that never go away. In fact, may that strengthen more and more. The other 2 would be family and friends. I think we put a 3 Fs there: faith, family, and friends. I think that's what I can come up with quickly. Yeah.
finances will take care of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think we have the faith that the rest will take care of itself. Yeah.
Wonderful. And define success in one line.
If you had given me 4, maybe I'd pick finance. I don't know. but if I had to, not that I'm saying that they're not dear to me, but if 3, then I would I would choose those 3. Yeah.
A few in an episode before this one, I answered mine. And so if I have to say faith, family, and friends, I would again say this: faith, family, and friends, because my family, that is my wife, takes care of my finances, so I don't need to worry. So that's
yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, and I may not let you get away with that, is you'll have to define when you say she takes care of your finances. You mean she spends it all, or?
Oh no. There's so many nasty jokes I can come about her, but that's something where I adore her. I mean, she has whatever.
You're a lucky man.
Yeah, I am grateful. I think whatever I've been able to make as learning minds or whatever, I think 99% credit goes to her. I was just 1% around. So, yeah.
Great.
One more question. Define success in one line.
Oh, God. One line. Purification of the heart. And that doesn't come from me. I think it's very clearly defined in the Quran, and it's in Surah Shams, and I think it's a gift to share that. And it's important because because the Holy Prophet, may peace be upon him, said that if you recite it, it's like you've given charity of all the wealth under the sun and the moon. And so, and the reason for it is that God makes about 11 promises before he says that success is attained by those who purify the heart, and failure is for those who have corrupted it. So it's not mine, and I hope I'm able to follow it. I think there are deep levels of corruptions in my own heart, and I think again, one of the things that we can do right now is that journey within. As we stay in our homes, as we stay in, we need to take that deep dive within. There's the moment where one of the scholars defines the divineness as something that has no start, it has no ending, and is manifested outwardly and hidden within. And so I think that's beautiful. And for people as well, we learn from our past, and we plan for our future, and we live in our present, and that's fine. But we've got to take a deep dive within. We are hidden from ourselves within, and so that purification of the heart, I think the more our hearts are pure, that really ultimately is success. Think of the people we remember, and what do we remember them for? And going back to that monetary capital and the finances, I read this list of the top 10 most wealthy, people in the history, and one for this part of the world is, people have affiliations. I'm not going to name people, but for this part of the world had wealth which was equivalent to 1/4 of the world's GDP. 1/4 of the world's GDP. The rich people in our country right now are nowhere close to that kind of wealth. But what do we know of their message? What do we know of their leadership? Yes, they had tremendous wealth, but what was their message? Yet there were people who had no wealth, but have, because of their pure hearts, have left a legacy which is so inspiring. Their message lives on. And so the 4 learning methodologies that we have is learn, love, live, lead. And that leads to leave a legacy. And I think that learn, love, live, lead helps us to leave a legacy. And that, to me, is success, that purification of the heart. That's one. I know I didn't say it in one line, but that one line is purification of the heart.
I think justified that line. So thank you, Azfar. I hope the conversation was as exciting for you as it was for me. I just loved it. So many points that I gained, and I'm sure my listeners would have also enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you for the generosity of your time and knowledge. I think this is the finest thing that we can cherish. So thank you, Azfar.
Thank you, Sohail. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, always a delight, and look forward to the next ones. Thank you.
Inshallah. Thank you. So thank you, listeners. Thank you for listening us all over again. But this time, I'm sure the value, the content, the ideas, the practical suggestion that we were able to discuss in this conversation would help you in your journeys in being better leader. And I'm still awestruck by that definition that came out in terms of how Asfar defines success. I think so much for all of us to learn from. So God bless you. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
God bless you. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.